You know, it's not uncommon for people to say things are a classic. From your favourite dish to that one photo of you passed out in a club, we have something we consider a remarkable endeavour that has stood the test of time. But more often than not, what one considers a timeless piece of art, someone else considers simply passable, which I guess leads me to Ferris Bueller's Day Off, the only teen movie anyone really considers a classic. So let's skip school and steal our dad's Ferrari. So it begins with the main character, Ferris, trying to convince his parents he's too ill to go in. I mean, I'm no expert in medicine, but surely the first thing you'd do is check his temperature. And I mean, he doesn't exactly look unhealthy, but somehow his parents are dumb enough to fall for it. So after they leave, we find out his best friend Cameron is apparently ill also. So he manages to convince him to go around his house or he'll stop being his friend or something. What a genius way to get someone to go out. After this, we are shown various classrooms of the school and Ferris is obviously absent, and he's concocted a scheme to get Sloane out as well by saying that her grandmother has passed and getting Cameron to put on a voice for the phone call. And honestly, I genuinely thought this scene was really well put together. I couldn't help but laugh at how pristine its delivery for all the jokes were, so I've got to give it merit for that. Anyway, Ferris and Cameron steal his dad's Ferrari for the day and pick up Sloane, and literally give away that it's obviously them within eavesdropping distance of the headmaster. Like, what a fucking doorknob. Anyone else would have rattled their scheme there and then, if they had any common sense. After this, the trio find themselves going into the city, where they get up to various shenanigans, such as faking their way into a fancy restaurant, getting stuck in traffic, and ending up in an art gallery of all places, and literally within meters of Ferris's dad. So I guess eyeballs just don't exist in this movie. I must admit that I found the art gallery scene pretty relatable, and probably my favourite scene. It depicts the typical ways most people attend one. Some will be disinterested, some will take it or leave it, and others will be completely fixated on one particular artwork. It's the kind of thing that's happened to everyone at some point, and how you've reacted is bound to be one of these three things. So anyway, after gate crashing a parade or something, they discover the mileage on the Ferrari is way higher than it was when they left. Knowing they're in deep shit, they jack it up and leave a brick on the pedal while it's in reverse. Discovering this was a complete waste of time, Cameron completely loses his shit and finally decides he's sick of everyone's shit and is going to take a stand for himself. What a legend! So he completely wrecks the car and mans up to his old man. After this, Ferris and Sloane make a run for it, knowing that they need to be home before their parents get home, and he nearly gets run over by his own sister of all people, and apparently his mother, who was in the passenger seat, didn't even notice apparently. Great observation skills there. So he makes it home in time to find the headmaster there, who says that he has him done, but his sister basically blackmails him and he gets attacked by their dog, because karma I guess. So Ferris gets back into bed and says he's a lot better and that he never wants to skip school again. So that's basically the plot for this film, and as a reviewer I feel a certain obligation to point out the positive aspects. Firstly, just how relatable this movie is deserves some kudos. I like how all the students are depicted as bored as fuck and not really interested in being there. This was definitely me when I was in high school, so it does strike a certain chord in that respect. I also like how at the beginning Ferris says, "I can't be expected to go in on a day like this," which I thought was genuinely a perfect reason for skipping school. No one wants to be dragged out of bed and sat bored off their face all day when the weather is perfect. Some of the jokes are legitimately well crafted and delivered to flawless comedic timing, like Cameron's description of marriage, saying that he doesn't want to because his parents are and they hate each other, which I guess leads me into the characters themselves. The three leads are relatable to an extent. Ferris is the rebellious type that simply wants to have fun and do what he wants. Sloane is the tag-along who'll just happily do whatever everyone else is doing without asking any unnecessary questions. And then there's Cameron, the reluctant to do anything type for fear of getting into shit. They're all characters that everyone watching is bound to resonate with, which also gets me to my next point, just how they look. Everyone in it just looks like normal people. None of them are particularly in great shape or that good looking, they're just normal working people, because that's who they are. If this was made today, they'd all have to be glammed up to fuck and in perfect physical condition. As always, I have to point out a few of my favourite scenes. The parade scene deserves some credit because it's so well choreographed and executed, how everyone just starts dancing in the street out of the blue, whilst Twist and Shout plays in the background. Maybe I'm just biased as a huge Beatles fan. It was a genuinely believable and enjoyable scene. And this leads me nicely into the soundtrack itself. Honestly, there couldn't be a more perfect soundtrack to this movie. Every song doesn't feel out of place and really adds to all the scenes whenever the music cues. There's also a few minor moments that really stood out. I think Cameron probably has the best movie screen to ever grace cinema. Post-credit scene where Ferris basically tells you to get out because the movie was over was a neat little addition. But it's not all sunshine and lollipops. There are a lot of things wrong with this film that I'm about to discuss. Firstly, the plot itself. Every event in the movie literally revolves around every adult being the most dumb as fucking gullible person ever. Like, does not one of them know how to use their eyes and common sense? Literally nothing that happens would even be possible if they actually had some thinking gear. Which is close to my next point. The restaurant clerk could have just simply asked for ID if he didn't believe Ferris was who he said he was. And why didn't he? It seems like such a simple solution to his problem. Oh well, whatever passes for a plot. There's various things throughout the day that simply just don't work. Like the sun basically never moves. Like how does all this even happen in one day? Surely it'd tick over a bit. Like how did they even get into the stadium to watch the baseball? I mean, I often wander into sports events without any tickets or prior reservations. But I guess Ferris is like magic or something, I suppose. One minor detail that kind of bugged me a bit was when Ferris's dad was reading a newspaper. There's an article about Ferris being sick and raising funds or something. I'm no journalist, but wouldn't that have been the next day's news, not the same day? Because I'm pretty sure they print the newspapers at like 4 in the morning, so there's no way it would have been on that day's. Another small detail that doesn't quite make sense is the fact a cassette tape can rewind itself without pressing any buttons or anything. Like really? Wouldn't you at least need to rewind it with a pencil? All in all, Ferris Bueller is a relatable and enjoyable movie. Despite the clunky plot that's loosely cobbled together, there is an enjoyable movie behind it. I think it's enjoyable because of how relatable a lot of it is. While it's not one of my favourites, it's definitely worth watching. I think it certainly doesn't deserve the status of classic that so many people have pinned on it over the years, but I still think it's a pretty cool movie despite that. Well, I think that about covers it. Signing off.